Hello and welcome to another review from the Academy of Historical Fencing. Today I'm going to be talking about the cold steel Parry Dagger trainer, or Parrying Dagger trainer, which is quite an interesting product. So I'm going to compare it to some of the sort of other steel and synthetic options we've got, talk about it generally. We've only just sort of got this in the UK. It tends to take quite a while for US products to get to us, so this is quite a new one for me. So I've only used it very briefly, but enough to review it perfectly well, especially as I've used a lot of their different products. So the first thing is I was surprised that this is made from their Santoprene range, which is their sort of fighting knife range, as opposed to their polypropylene range, which is the sort of typical sword range that they do, and some of the smaller daggers and wakasashis and things like that. So I was expecting it to be nylon until I obviously saw it on their website. It is Santoprene, which is their almost slightly rubbery plastic, so it's a bit softer, takes a little bit more damage, but not a big deal. The Santoprene range tends to flex better than the polypropylene range, although this one is very rigid. I can flex it if I do this, but if you try and actually strike a training partner with it, it's going to hit like a rigid dagger really in most scenarios. So yeah, it's best compared to their polypropylene range really, even though it is Santoprene. So what do I think of it? Well, let's compare it to a few other options that are common. This is one of my standard daggers. I'm going to show a few different examples, but this is a Denelli that was custom made to go with the rapier I had made, and it's actually the best match to this that I've actually got. And you can see it's fairly close. The quillons on this are surprisingly large and turned up. These are excessively large. It existed historically, but they're normally smaller than this. And that's one of the things I would say about this, that I would have preferred if they'd gone a bit smaller on these quillons. They are rather huge, even compared to my very large quillons on my Denelli. So I think the quillons are a little bit large. The blade length is long, not necessarily excessively long, but it certainly is long. I'm glad they actually got a side ring on there. This is so vitally important. You wouldn't believe how important that side ring is to rapier. Commonly, we grip an offhand dagger like this, which we call a main gauche, or just an offhand dagger. We grip it with the thumb on the flat, so that we can use these kind of sweeping motions, and then any protection you have on the front, whether it's a ring, or closed port, or a shell, or a sail guard, anything like that, provides a lot of protection to the hand when blows come in and actually rest on the quillon. They actually protect the hand really well. So any of my daggers, you'll see loads of marks and scrapes on this ring because it is that important. So I'm really glad they got it on there. And even though it's small, that's actually quite representative of a lot of original examples. So pretty happy with that. The sort of pommel and fake peen section, the wire wrap, and almost like shagreen or sort of shark skin type sort of finish to the grip is quite nice. It does grip very nicely with a leather glove. So overall, I'm quite impressed. The big question is, can you use it with steel? Yes, you can. I've said this before, the cold steel range, it's very robustly built to the level that, yes, you can use them with steel blades. But then how does it compare to using our other stuff? Well, as I said, on flexibility, it realistically flexes less than most steels. I mean, my Denelli has a good bit of flex to it, nothing massive, so it's pretty rigid. The tip is quite small. You can't realistically hit somebody with that with any amount of force and not do them damage, so you're going to have to hold back on the thrusts, but I tend to prefer more rigid rapier daggers anyway. So that's not a problem, just bear it in mind in terms of safety. I would say the grip they've gone a little bit long on. I would have preferred it to just being a little bit shorter, particularly the way you grip it like this, but with hand size variations, it's not a problem. That's kind of all the stuff I like about it. What don't I like about it? Well, I've shown you against this dagger. I'll just show you a few other daggers that I've got because it's important in terms of size, weight and scale. See, it's a nice match-up to my Cavexar's shell dagger. Size-wise, nice match-up. And Black Fencer, again, pretty similar. The only thing I've got left that I also tend to use is my, we often call an alehouse dagger, which is absolute monster, British monster, which is massive compared to it. But you can see the nice upturn quillons like this one has. Oh, how does it compare to those? Well, the most significant point is that this is really, really light. It's actually just under 200 grams. I weighed it in at 198 grams, which is really, really light. If you go back to the Black Fencer, this is their current generation V4 dagger. This is about 500 grams. So, 2.5 times the weight of the cold steel. And to put that in perspective, my steel daggers, my Denelli is 600, which it's got a bigger closed port on it than this. So the Denelli is pretty similar to the Black Fencer, and the others are a little bit heavier owing to the amount of metal in them. So the Black Fencer is sort of a realistic weight dagger. The cold steel is really, really lightweight. Now, is that a problem? If you're doing only rapier fencing and doing a lot of thrust work, that's okay. Once you start getting more cut work involved and some heavier blades as well, it's just too light for doing those things. As we found using sort of nylon size and things like that in the past. So if you're using it as a cheap rapier dagger, it's really quite good. If you want to use a dagger like this with other swords, so with your sabers, your side swords, that kind of thing, you're better off jumping straight to the Black Fencer. The Black Fencer is no less safe, it's more realistic, more sort of common proportions in terms of grip length, quilling type, which I quite like. And I'd also say it looks 10 times better. And also the white blade is really preferable to black. Cold steel just had this obsession with everything having to be tactical or ninja approved or something. I don't like black. It doesn't show up particularly well on film. It doesn't show up well on our black jackets. So I think the Black Fencer is a better product. Of course, these are dirt cheap. Black Fencers, I think they're around about 40 euros, and this comes in at sort of less than half the price. So if you want something quickly, dirt cheap, and it's quite good for rapier, the cold steel is quite good, but particularly if you're in Europe, I'd recommend just jumping to the Black Fencer. Take a little bit longer to get, but it's worth it, and they'll go on forever, as I'm sure the cold steel one will. So yeah, if you want a quick dagger, you want a product quickly, it's pretty good. I don't think it looks anywhere near as nice as a training weapon as the Black Fencer, and I don't think, as a result of its being lightweight, it's going to be anywhere near as good with those other weapon types. This is incredibly lightweight. So yeah, I think I paid about £13 for it. I think they're about $16 in the US, which is really dirt cheap. So pretty good products all around. I personally would cut these quillins back a little bit. They're just a little bit too large, and I believe these are solid, so I'd cut them back a little bit, maybe an inch or two off the quillins there. But aside from that, a pretty good product. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video.